All right. So, I, did I not save? Okay, it is what it is. So live streaming, and they, I'm halfway there with the life of El Chapo. It's pretty scary how certain people live a lifestyle of so much money that it just doesn't make sense to have this mentality that $1 million is like $5 to them.
An
It's
organization, and
crazy.
there are tiers and there are ranks, and you can move up through those ranks, and you can also kind of specialize in what you do.
Chapo Guzman is the CEO of the Sinaloa cartel, and Mayo
By the way,
Zambada is.
I'm dropping a video edit. Just let me know what do you guys think, all right? And that's basically an introduction. If you came from the YouTube Shorts, congratulations, you found the very best video documentary ever. Shout out to Real Stories for uploading this video. Now I already watched half of it. I haven't watched the other half. If you guys are wanting to watch the first half, go to them and go watch it. I'm just watching this to react. And the life of El Chapo is, I would have to compare it similar but slightly different than Pablo Escobar. Holy.
Like the chief operating officer for the Sinaloa cartel.
Like Chapo, he played really a tremendously crucial role for the Sinaloa cartel. Zambada was sort of the deputy, but a very powerful, very influential deputy to El Chapo.
His right hand, basically. Ismael El Mayo. Also, catch me on Twitch after 9 p.m. live streaming. I stream for like 1 to 2 hours. Also, if you guys want to join the live stream, you can add me on Discord. Let me know. All right? Just let me know. Join the Discord so we can watch it.
El Chapo Guzman and Ishmael El Mayo Zambada were extraordinarily good at identifying the best and brightest talent that they could.
He had three different lines of business. One was the financial side of the business, the people that would launder the money.
You're talking about accountants, money launderers, lawyers, a kind of whole financial apparatus that is set up.
Individuals with MBAs from some of the best universities in the world, with doctoral degrees in making businesses profitable.
And these people that worked here did not know that people that were working on the harvesting and on the logistical sides.
You've got the logistics guys, the transport, right? Drivers, pilots, mechanics, warehouse people, real estate people.
And it showcases people that work in real estate, transportation, accounting, banking. There's certain rules and regulations you have to follow. And when you don't follow these rules and laws that are implemented within these companies, it will cause a domino effect. And you can you can always find these people that are just trying to make money, and then when you can't bribe these people that are doing their jobs, that's when the structure of these bad people falls, and there's always going to be a leaf, a branch that breaks, and the plant becomes affected. Just saying, man.
They had the best and brightest in terms of engineers to build tunnels, to build submarines.
You got your broker in Bolivia, you got your broker in Peru, you got your broker in Bogota. You got all these people who are out there scouting for product, making the deal. Yeah, do that deal, right? And Guzman was a micromanager. So he was oftentimes agreeing, haggling on price all over the globe.
And then he had the protection side. The people with the guns, the people that would intimidate.
You have people, sicarios, your trained assassins.
When you get in your car, you just need to put your location in.
What the heck was
the
that?
trip planner.
Is that a machine gun? Yo. Now it's all like 80 bros. What the fuck? Ole. I've been grasping a lot of the words from people who live stream. Very interesting. Look, I will say that this side of the security part, a lot of people like this. I don't know why, but people are weird. Like, get off of that, all right? I know we have our Second Amendment, but come on. No, this kind of lifestyle is not the lifestyle that will end in a fairy tale, in a happy ending fairy tale, all right?
You have La Guardia, or guardsmen. These would be the people that might, surround an event as security. You have people who are stationed on mountaintops, a sort of a security system within a region to make sure that they know everybody who's coming in and everybody who's going out.
You also have people that had contact with the government officials in order to do the bribery and corruption.
Another element of Chapo's acumen was his strong focus on building up political support, political capital with local communities.
You've got a whole political corruption team. You've got the guys who are in the fancy Mexico City social clubs and restaurants who are talking to the right people in the government to make sure that nothing really happens. Think of them as lobbyists. They're, narco lobbyists. Google does the same thing. Google's got a Washington team, right? All they do is plead their case to the lawmakers in Washington. Guzman had something similar, but on the dark side of the law.
And then you have a group of people that do their intelligence. These are guys that tap the phones, figure out who the people are. In human resources, in, let's say, Walmart, you go in and you give your file where you have your employee, you give your social security number, your tax returns, references, and that's it. Here, the intelligence department does a little bit of a further due diligence. They interview people, they tap your phone, and they look at who your neighbors are. They do a very thorough background check on you. And then they see the money that you have. If you have more money in your account or in cash that the cartel has given you, there's gonna be a big problem. You have to explain that. Are you stealing from us? Are you selling information?
Sinaloa tiene más de 40 años siendo el cártel principal de este país. El Chapo que tenía a su vez a sus ayudantes o a sus gerentes de rutas, gerente de ventas, de compras, de precios, gerente de entregas, de mercancía, de tal manera que se manejaba como un jefe de una empresa.
And it's broken up into components. And these components don't know everything that is going on in the Sinaloa cartel because he compartmentalizes the cartels.
Having them separated enabled him that if somebody was caught in one of these transactions, they would not affect the other side of the business.
You have people connected in myriad ways, many of whom do not work full-time for this criminal structure, which have a foot on the criminal economy and a foot in the legal economy at the same time. You have people that one day will transport heroin and the next day will transport tomatoes. This is more like a gig economy type of arrangement. Think more Uber than Amazon.
So it just makes it all the more difficult when you realize that the guy's operating on 5 continents, communicating around the clock. It's an astonishing feat of business acumen.
Lawyers in his trial said he really could have probably been the manager of just about any company.
Now look at Ford, Chevrolet, Coca-Cola Company. You have different people in charge of different things. It's a business, you know? So yeah, call it cocaine, call it, you know, Coca-Cola. Apple is a business, and you have this guy that really knew how to run his business.
But let's not kid ourselves. This was not a good narco. This guy is responsible for thousands of deaths.
Oh. Halloween is early. Halloween is here. Not early.
Despite his business acumen, Guzman is not always successful at staying ahead of the law. In 1993, he is arrested and sentenced to 20 years in a maximum security prison known as Puente Grande. But he doesn't step down as CEO.
In prison, he basically lived like a king. He had everyone on his payroll, from the guards to the cooks, the everything.
Everything. Lol. Whoa, what game is this? What game is this? Actually, ooh. World of Warships. WR.
And through his lawyers and his brothers, he continued to run the cartel.
He was able to maintain communication with his co-conspirators to figure out how to grow his business, stay safe, build alliances, and kill his enemies.
Guzman spends 8 years in Puente Grande. And it is only when the Mexican Supreme Court legalizes extradition to the United States, and it is suddenly possible that Guzman will be facing a much sterner form of justice in the United States, that he contrives to escape.
He escaped in January 2001. How he escaped remains a little murky. The official version, and the one recounted by most journalists, is that he was rolled out in a laundry cart by a lower-ranking prison official.
When Chapo Guzman escapes, he heads to the mountainous area in Sinaloa, and he's safe there because it's very difficult to conduct a raid by land because of the rings of security that he has.
Cuando se escapó de la cárcel de alta seguridad de Puente Grande, duró 13 años en libertad, los 13 años en donde realmente hizo su gran fortuna, en donde realmente se convirtió en el capo de capos.
He was the capo of globalization. He saw a market opportunity that would lead him to send scouts everywhere from Egypt to Thailand to Nigeria to Holland to Argentina, both to produce and to distribute and to traffic. He saw globalization opening doors that he'd never imagined.
The Sinaloa cartel is like a furnace that has to be fed. Otherwise, the fire is going to die out, and that is the end of the Sinaloa cartel. So they have to continue to expand in terms of taking over territory, taking over business, and it's more like a hostile takeover than anything else.
Settling the disputes is not the same in the street and actual business. On the street, you know, when somebody has beef or problems with you, you can't go to a lawyer, you know what I mean?
If you have two criminals, do they trust each other? No. Are they gonna do by the bylaws? Probably not. Are they gonna have this problem again? Probably yes. So you have these recurring problems going again and again, because at the end of the day, somebody crosses the line and somebody's more ambitious than the other.
Yeah.
In the narco world, eliminating your competition literally means eliminating your competition.
The way that business disputes and market share and territorial markets is done in this business is through warfare, through blood.
49 found dead outside Mexico's wealthiest city. Their dismembered bodies scattered on a highway leading from Monterrey to the Texas border. The victims are a casualty of the escalating fight over profitable smuggling routes into the U.S.
El Chapo has repeatedly tried to seize over the drug trafficking access points to the United States that had for decades been the location of major rival groups, the Juarez cartel and the Tijuana cartel.
When the Sinaloa cartel would do a hostile takeover of a rival gang's territory, they would kill the upper tier of that cartel. They would eliminate them because they didn't want them to initiate an offensive later on against them.
In the mid-2000s, Chapo Guzman decides to acquire the rival Juarez cartel.
So he tried to muscle his way into Juarez. He launched a savage war in Ciudad Juarez from beginning 2008. Between 2008 and 2011, 10,000 people were murdered in Ciudad Juarez. That's 1 in 130 inhabitants in that city.
Chapo Guzman has always used violence to control his cartel, to basically go after his rivals.
Imagine being able to build anything.
Chat, this is crazy.
For any reason, in any style, at any scale.
He's not just some poor kid from Sinaloa who got mixed up in the drug trade. By all definitions, he's a psychopath.
And there was one occasion where he beat an individual with a stick, according to witnesses, and then he shot the man in the head. He was still alive, gasping for air, and he ordered his men to throw him into a makeshift grave, and he was buried alive. So that type of horrific violence is very intimidating to anybody that crosses Chapo Guzman.
Although takeovers in the legal business world don't result in piles of dead bodies, they can be hostile too.
So a legal example of a hostile takeover is kind of the late 2000s takeover of Anheuser-Busch by InBev. InBev really wanted to move into the US market. They have lots of beers across South America and even in Europe, but they didn't have a real strong standing in the United States. So what they started to do is make an offer of purchasing shares of the Anheuser-Busch company.
When Anheuser-Busch learned of InBev's offer to a majority of shareholders, they tried to fight the takeover with lawsuits. But in the end, the shareholders voted to accept the offer.
So taking over Anheuser-Busch allows them essentially to capture about half of the American market, which is one of the richest markets in the world.
One guideline about a hostile takeover is to make sure your own company remains cohesive during the proceedings.
By that point, Chapo thought that you could wage war and maintain a base at home.
As Guzman tries to take over Juarez, he faces an attempt at a corporate takeover from the inside.
The Beltran Leyva brothers were part of the core organizing leadership of the Sinaloa cartel, along with El Chapo Guzman and El Mayo Zambada. But there is a major falling out in the 2000s, 2008, 2009 between El Chapo and the Beltran Leyva brothers. The Beltran Leyva faction decided to split off, and Chapo doesn't want to put up with it, especially as the Beltran Leyva brothers also try to put new allies.
But like with any criminal enterprise, there's no honor among thieves.
Ultimately, the brothers put a hit on El Chapo's son, launching a massive blood feud with the Sinaloa cartel.
The homicide numbers just skyrocketed in 2008 when his son was killed, and they went to war.
And what Guzman would often do is buy the local police forces, corrupt them, and turn them into his proxy armies on the ground.
El Chapo Guzman was able to effectively and cynically use the Mexican military and the national police to fight some of his battles for him and to stand back and allow the Mexican authorities to effectively take out his competitors, either by arrest or by killing them in armed combat.
Eventually, Arturo Beltran Leyva was killed in a shootout with security forces. Hector Beltran Leyva was captured in Cuernavaca. So they're pretty much a defunct criminal organization at this point in time.
When these battles and these wars that left literally thousands of not just rival cartel members, but police officers and prosecutors and judges and completely innocent civilians in Mexico dead, El Chapo Guzman at that point had really established himself as being incredibly competent and allowed these other high-ranking narco-traffickers to effectively kill one another off.
Yet as the violence soars, so do Chapo Guzman's profits, and he begins being featured in the mainstream financial press.
Huh? Financial press? I'll be like getting some band? What
in addition to being the world's most powerful, wealthiest, most vicious, most feared narco-trafficker in the world, El Chapo Guzman is a brand. He's a mystique.
The Americas has 50 billionaires, down from 63. The big news there is that we put on a drug trafficker, basically one of the biggest providers of cocaine to the U.S. And his name is Joaquin El Chapo Guzman Loera, and he is...
We are not a traditional cafe. We're completely unconventional. And my book's website really has to capture the same magic.
Not available for interviews because he's on the run. He's one of the world's most wanted people.
Forbes puts him on its list of richest people on the planet, Forbes billionaire list. His number is 701 the first time. There's a 701st richest guy on the planet. And so all of a sudden, apparel starts showing up. Baseball hats with 701, t-shirts with 701. And those who know that that's his Forbes number. He really starts to become a figure of celebrity at that point.
701?
The guy loved being seen as this major tycoon that had global impact. And he loved the idea of being a legend, being in movies, being a celebrity.
Like any other successful CEO, El Chapo understands the importance of branding and making sure that their reputation is well respected in the area.
Drugs don't sell them motherfuckers self, you know. You definitely have to brand yourself. I think it's extremely important, you know, to bring that branding, that marketing into your game. The way El Chapo branded himself was like he's running everything. So you're always gonna trust the best product.
He introduces branding with his initials JGL for Joaquin Guzman Loera, and thanks to Mexican popular culture, finds a good way to advertise.
So El Chapo wants to be known as the big godfather, as the powerful figure, as the innovator. And that's one reason, so it's all his personal preference is one of the reasons why he invests in hiring singers and musicians to sing narco corridos about him. And often pays them a very significant amount of money to create songs about him.
Narco corridos is a type of music dedicated specifically to drug traffickers and their exploits. They tend to talk about the bravado of killing someone.
There are probably dozens of narco corridos on Chapo Guzman made by some of the most famous bands in Mexico.
So if we think about the songs, the narco corridos, it's essentially advertising for the cartel, and they're going to sing about the cartel in positive lights or things that benefit the cartel.
Let me play
Connor,
song.
obviously Jose said
I wanted to introduce you to someone. This is
Mi
our son.
amigo el de arriba.
Frank.
Okay, I mean, it sounds like he's singing about God. I don't hear anything wrong. Calibre 50, let me hear this. Oh. Padrino del Diablo, what?
Yet it seems a lot of local people are willing to ignore the violence, perhaps due to the power of Guzman's rebel mystique.
He was the face of the cartel, and he sort of got this brandished image as sort of an untouchable guy.
Following Chapo Guzman's 2001 escape from Puente Grande in the laundry cart, U.S. and Mexican forces spend more than a decade trying to hunt him down.
There's a multitude of agencies that are tracking Chapo Guzman, talking about the FBI, we're talking about DEA, Homeland Security, and others, obviously to include the Mexican Marines. And they're tracking his telephone communications, they're tracking communications of family members, organizational members. So that is the way they track him into Mazatlan, into the Miramar condominiums. The Marines, they kick in the door, they subdue the lone bodyguard that Chapo Guzman has, and Chapo Guzman is in a bedroom with his wife and twin daughters. So he gives himself up, and that is the second capture of Chapo Guzman.
After this 2014 arrest, the Mexican government makes sure the drug lord is incarcerated in their most secure penitentiary, called Altiplano.
When El Chapo Guzman was finally caught the second time,
Online on Mac immerses you in a universe with
his lieutenants immediately went to work on building what I certainly consider one of the most impressive tunnels of any sort that has ever been constructed.
Members of the Sinaloa cartel, they buy a piece of property a mile away from the prison, and they start to build the tunnel.
It's rumored to have cost approximately $2 million. It was an effort by, my understanding, very sophisticated German tunneling engineers.
The pièce de résistance is that they lay a kind of railroad tracking and create this makeshift vehicle that is a kind of rail cart powered by a motorcycle.
And walks back to the shower.
The tunnel was so precise that he literally took 3 or 4 steps across his very small cell, stood for 1 second behind a privacy partition in his shower area, and dropped into a hole in the ground and escaped on this modified motorcycle on rails to race away over a mile to freedom.
Chapo Guzman was taken by vehicle to a clandestine airstrip where a single engine aircraft was waiting, and they took him back to Sinaloa within within a few minutes.
His ability to have engaged in these incredible Houdini-like escapes has created this folkloric image of him across the world.
La fuga infringió una presión mayor todavía, si se puede, de parte del gobierno de Estados Unidos hacia el gobierno mexicano para capturarlo, para que evitar que de nuevo o que su figura mítica creciera todavía más.
After his escape, I thought he was going to be very cautious. Surprisingly, he was not. The whole Hollywood thing that surrounded nature of the escape and the global fascination that this created led him to believe that his own legend and led him to allow himself to take unnecessary risks.
He was this mythical, bigger-than-life person, and that went to his head. Within days of being out of prison, went back to his same old communications network and methods that were able to be right up on a wiretap again, tracking him.
For almost 6 months, El Chapo Guzman remains on the run, with Mexican and U.S. law enforcement closing in.
They track his communications, they find him, they pin him down to a safe house in the town of Los Mochis. The Mexican Marines hit the safe house.
El día de hoy, las fuerzas federales lograron la captura de Joaquín Guzmán Loera, el prófugo más buscado del mundo.
He literally could have rode off in the sunset and just avoided law enforcement for the rest of his life. But that greed, fame, and fortune, he just couldn't. His ego wouldn't allow him to do that. For El Chapo, being the head of the Sinaloa cartel is who he was. So him to be able to step away from that was just not in his DNA.
El Chapo Guzman began to believe his own hype, that he was untouchable. And Ismael El Maya Zambada, who's only given, as far as we know, one formal interview to a media organization, put his finger on it, said he got sloppy. And that sloppiness, coupled with his arrogance, at his feeling of being untouchable, ultimately it led to his downfall.
En el mundo,
imagine being able to build anything just by thinking about it. Meet Base 44.
Del tráfico de drogas, no hay salida, no hay salida. Que alguno iba a ser detenido. La única forma en que lo retiraron. La única alternativa es la muerte.
The old saying, live by the sword, die by the sword.
On January 19, 2017, the CEO of Sinaloa is extradited to the U.S. Then arraigned in a Brooklyn federal court.
El Chapo knew that when he was extradited to the U.S., that would be the end of his career.
The battle was lost at extradition. But you have to remember that Guzman's escapes in Mexico were affected essentially by two means. One, money, and two, because his network was there. And the money and the network just weren't translatable to an American setting. And so once he hit American soil, it was over.
The trial begins in November 2018.
El Chapo's trial was unlike any other trial I've ever covered. So when you enter the courthouse, they had, bomb-sniffing dogs. They had snipers on the roof.
Guzman faces 10 charges, including drug distribution conspiracy, conspiracy to launder narcotics proceeds, and engaging in a criminal enterprise.
As part of that continuing criminal enterprise, he was accused not only of smuggling illegal drugs over the border and distributing them in the United States, but he was accused of using enormous and insane amounts of violence to keep his empire moving forward.
What's interesting is we have this trial where El Chapo is extradited to the United States, but really most of the atrocities that were committed will never be accounted for because that would have had to take place in a Mexican courtroom and it didn't. And that's because of the levels of corruption there. So holding him accountable here, most of his crimes have truly gone unpunished. The trial against El Chapo was airtight. They had evidence. They had over 1 million text messages between cartel members. They had videos, they had photographs, they had seized shipments. They had 56 witnesses, 14 of whom had worked deeply within the cartel.
The way that Chapo...
This was his movie. He didn't get the movie, but he got the trial.
After 4 months of testimony, the jury finds Joaquin Guzman guilty on all counts. And the judge sentences the 61-year-old drug lord to life in prison plus 30 years.
In sum, the jury found that Guzman led the Sinaloa cartel, one of the largest and most dangerous drug cartels in the world, and that he's responsible for violence, including murders, and the smuggling of massive amounts of narcotics into the United States over a period of decades.
Chapo Guzman was taken by U.S. Marshals to the Supermax Penitentiary in Florence, Colorado. This is the prison that replaced Alcatraz. That is where they have some of the worst criminals in the United States.
I think there's always been a lionization of outlaws in all cultures.
I think you should do
Chapo
very...
has played that up